All right, what's going on, y'all? Conscious here, and E-Turns here also.
What up?
And so today we have a gentleman who's basically a hip-hop renaissance man. He's an MC, DJ, radio show host, record store manager, label manager, artist manager, writer, soon-to-be published writer, teacher.
Dang.
And just time traveler at some point, because I don't know how you're doing that. But today we've got Kevin Beacham in the building.
How you doing?
Thank you again for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
And now, the whole series I'm putting together is called Hip Hop Got Me Here.
Okay.
And so I mentioned all those things that you do. I don't have like 40, I know you don't have time to go through all that right now. I would like to do that on the future radio show, on the radio at some point.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? But for right now, the segment is Hip Hop Got Me Here.
Gotcha.
And that's literally your story while you're here
Yeah.
in Minneapolis.
Indeed.
So kind of start that off, because when I was reading, it was like a song you heard that you got through the radio station.
What happened was I did a radio show.
Yeah, in Chicago.
In Chicago, that was called Time Travel.
All right.
Oh, nice. Yes.
So I did a radio show called Time Travel, and me and my co-hosts were out in New York at Rocksteady Anniversary in '97.
Nice. You just came back from Puerto Rock.
Oh, okay.
So good.
So we're out there, and it's like, typical, those kind of events. People are giving you free stuff all day.
Yeah.
And so me and my co-host, Jay Pratt, get home, and we're going through our bags and boxes of free CDs we got.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this ain't good, that's all right. And nothing was really sticking, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I got a really good CD out there. I'm like, oh, you got the only good, let me hear this really good CD. Like, he plays it. Immediately, like the first verse, I'm like, give me that CD. I'm looking on the back. As a phone number, I'm down number for the first song was even halfway done, and it was Atmosphere's Overcast CD.
Yeah.
And that's how he got it. Sadiq was out there. They were out in New York too.
Yeah.
So Minneapolis and Chicago connected via New York.
Damn, that's dope. Yeah.
And then it was funny because even when I called Sadiq, I was like, hey, my partner got this in New York, and I do a radio show. If you give me a copy, I can play on the radio, whatever. All right, what else you got? He was like, well, I'm almost out of CDs. We got a big event coming up in 2 weeks. So when I get my re-up, I'll give you. I was like, cool. I was like, what's the event you got coming up? He's like, we're going through this thing called Scribble Jam. I'm like, I'm part of Scribble Jam.
Damn, okay.
I'll see you there.
Yeah.
So then we next connected at Scribble Jam '97. That was like kind of the next step, how we took things to it. Yeah.
Now, what was it about that song on Overcast that you heard and were like,
man, I don't know if I can really. It was just dope.
Yeah.
It's just straight up. It sounded different. It didn't sound like anything. There's a lot of different. That's a time where there was a lot of independent artists coming out. It was a huge growth of independent records. Every week at a record store, 50 new singles were out.
Yep.
So you couldn't even keep up with things. So there's a lot of different styles and things coming out. That still struck me as something very different about the music, and I don't know, but something unique about it, but also something that fit in at the same time. It was a little bit of both.
did it seem kind of polished, maybe?
Yeah.
Because back then, that's when like everybody that could rap, that could say words, were putting out something too.
Yeah, it was more polished, I guess you would say. It had more of a good feel than when I usually get artists I've never heard of before. Especially from somewhere like, especially like even then, it was still sort of, me being from, growing up in a lot of small towns, I still recognize that a lot of times in small towns, people were behind on even when I was making music, let's say like, I was making my demos in 1988, 89, I was still using the 808, where everyone else was already on the sampling. I had a small sampler, but that's all I had, so I used what I had. So
that's hip hop though.
Yeah. So a lot of times, small cities were a little behind on production and behind on things.
Sounding dated.
Sounding dated, even though they were talented.
But
it's because they were just using what they had. But that right there, it sounded like they were like ahead of the curve. Like, so they're in Minneapolis, and they're kind of ahead of the curve, or at least right on the curve. So that just stood out to me.
Okay. Now, so how long? So Sadiq sent you some joints for the radio show.
Yep.
Right. How long were you playing joints on the show where you were like, I need to move to Minneapolis?
Well, what happened was us playing stuff on the radio got a great response from Chicago.
Oh, dope.
Just great response. So what happened was, Jay Bird, who's also works for Rhymesayers and big part of Soundset, we both lived in the Chicago area.
Oh, okay.
So he's from there too.
Okay.
And so I was like, hey, Jay, and he was managing a group called Rubber Room. He was a manager of Rubber Room.
Okay.
And Rubber Room was kind of getting big at the time, had a couple of label deals on the table. We're about to go on tour, all this stuff. And so we were like, you know what? We haven't really been to Minneapolis yet. Let's call these guys in Minneapolis, see about getting Rubber Room out there, and let's bring them out here because they're getting a good response from my radio show.
Okay.
So we started swapping shows.
Because you're a promoter also back then, right? You were doing events.
Yeah, we were doing events. Me and Burr were doing events together. And so we came out, it's like probably like 3 months after we got that CD, we drove up for our first show just to check out the scene.
Oh, that's dope.
Came out, it was a J Live show. J Live.
J Live.
Oh, nice.
J Live and Rhymesayers.
Yeah.
At the 7th Street entry. Blew us away. Just the way how professional the show was, how much talent there was here, how responsive the fans were. Just everything blew us away.
Yeah.
So we just started working with them regularly, doing more of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
When Rubber Room was going to go on their big tour, or their first tour for their album coming out, they got Atmosphere to open up.
Oh, okay.
On that tour, Rubber Room broke up on tour.
Oh, wow.
They're not always in the way. This is our big break. Let's break up.
Let's break up.
Like literally,
Tour's
the
hard,
big break
man.
is the breakup.
Touring
Yeah,
with people, that's when you know.
So they broke up. Atmosphere wanted to keep on going.
Yeah.
And Brad was like, well, you know, I don't got a job here because then. So he basically started touring, managing for Atmosphere.
Okay.
And that was the next connection. Then one day, just randomly, Sadiq came to me. I was in town for something. He was like, hey, man, we appreciate the things you've done for us, helping with the radio and all the connection, the Bird connection. Thank you. If we ever get to a point where we get bigger and we can hire someone else, I'll probably offer you a job.
Okay.
At the time, I thought it was just like a nice gesture.
Yeah, you're just being nice. Yeah.
I didn't even expect it to ever return it. I'm like, independent label hiring me to move somewhere. Yeah, I was kind of over that idea. I was looking for like, how am I going to be able to keep doing hip hop and find a corporate job I can live with?
Yeah.
I'd already moved on to like giving up on a job in hip hop. I kind of moved on from that. But like a year and a half later, he got a phone call. He was like, remember that job I mentioned? I was like, sort of. I totally just like let it go by. He's like, well, I'm making an official offer right now. I'm like, oh, word?
That's dope.
And so
you guys was keeping in touch that whole year and a half?
Yeah, because the thing that struck me about Rhymesayers, and this is why I probably would have been reluctant to take that job, because I've like uprooted my life, moved to Minneapolis. I saw labels come and go quick.
Especially on the radio.
I always saw like groups that were there. The next year, they were never heard of them again. Labels were folding. I was something that I had to think about. But what struck me was, in Chicago, I would always invite local artists to come to my radio show. Like we were on the north side, Northwestern University, and so I'd be like, hey, come down to your show, promote your new single, promote your show, whatever. Yeah. And I would get certain artists to be like, where you guys at? We're like, oh man, I live on the south side. So they would like artists in our own, in Chicago who couldn't make it. Yeah. Rhymesayers used to drive from Minneapolis, come to my show, freestyle, and drive home.
Damn.
What?
Wow.
That's dope.
They would, you know what I'm saying? They would drive 6 hours to rap for 10 minutes to drive home for 6 hours.
That's crazy.
When I knew that kind of dedication, if it fails, it's just because it was it just couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable because of the work ethic they had.
It's dope. Okay.
And I feel like I had a similar work ethic where I was gonna I would drive to New York just to check out the scene. I drove to Toronto, check out the scene. I came to Florida. I've gone places just to be like, I'm curious about hip hop.
Yeah.
And I had that kind of similar ethics. I was like, I think we'll work. If we work together, we can make things happen.
That's dope. So you're like what as far as like number? What Rhymesayer number like are you? You're
staff wise?
Yeah, like
when I came here, the only person on the staff. Some of the artists helped out. Yeah, worked out. But
which is dope. Which I think helps out. That's part of the success.
Yeah, Sean was working in the store. But, people were working in the store and all that.
So they already had the store.
Yeah, the store was open in '99. I came here in 2002.
Okay.
So when I came here, though, the only official employees were Sadiq and Bird, and Bird was pretty much on the road all the time.
Oh, okay.
As far as there was also store employees too, but as far as just the label going. Yeah. And so I remember when I first came here for like months, Bird was already on tour, so it was just me and Sadiq. Yeah. And actually, when I came here, I didn't even have a specific job.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, he offered you what? It was like
I didn't. And the funny thing, I didn't even think about it until I got here. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? And I asked him, he was like, And so I just went and started cleaning the basement because the basement's a mess. All right. I started cleaning the basement, and then while I was cleaning up, so I went somewhere and I heard a beep, and I looked around. There was a fax machine, got a fax, and there was an order for some CDs. I was like, oh, I just saw those CDs. And I went and packed it up, and he's like, yeah, you can do that. And I was like, My CDs, I'll do this. And so I started
Nice.
my first job was, distribution down in the basement. Yeah.
Nice.
So now it's from distribution, because you seem like the type of person like I need to get into like a lot of things to do a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I like being active.
Yeah, exactly. So now, all right. So went from not really cleaning the basement, distribution.
Yeah.
What was like the next thing?
I think I just started looking for like certain little holes of how we could do little things. So like, through the distribution, I started an intern program for us. That was the first time we started an intern program. Like, we can have people help doing this, but I can do other things rather than just packing a box.
Delegate.
Yeah.
And then I was like, from there, I was like, you know what? I remember how I got my start in the business was being on street teams.
Okay.
So I started the Rhymesayers street team.
Dope.
And then right around that time, probably like a year and a half later, something like that, Rhymesayers officially got their first distribution deal.
Warner?
No, this was through a place called Navarre. It's a local company.
Oh, dope. Okay.
Yeah, it was a company in Minneapolis. In Minnesota. It was in New Hope, Minnesota. And so when that happened, we were doing less shipping from our own basement.
Yeah.
And I became more of like just like the retail solicitation. So I was like, I was the person that called the retail stores and called distributors and made sure they knew what was coming out, why they should order it. Just sort of like, I was doing that. It's like sales.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it just kept evolving.
And then you became like store manager.
Yeah. So
that's dope.
because I think that we all always knew that one thing is I like working with people. I like connecting with people.
Yeah.
So and then also just having a lot of knowledge about the music and stuff like that. So that have me in a store made sense.
Okay.
And it kind of aligned with what I wanted to do too. So
yeah.
And it gave me some freedom to do some other creative stuff that I wanted to do from like the writing and things like that.
That's dope. So now so you came to Minneapolis. You said 2002. 2002.
That's my moved there. Yeah.
And like, what's the first thing you do when you come into like a new city? Like, how do you just find in the hip hop? Like, you just come in. Like,
it was funny because like that was one of my biggest, lack of a better word, I say, I guess, fears was that. Man, I've been in the Chicago scene for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And so I put in a lot of work there, which did achieve some things, but didn't achieve what I wanted. Like I put a lot of work. I feel like I was getting, in terms of my hip hop work, I was getting paid way below minimum wage.
Yeah.
It's like slave labor. Yeah. It's like slave labor. So I was like, all right, now I got to go somewhere new and start over again to get nothing.
Yes.
Awesome.
And then Minneapolis though, because the only thing you knew was just like Rhymesayers, right?
Pretty much. So
right.
I was really reluctant. I mean, not reluctant. I was like, oh man, this is going to be rough. But here I am.
Yeah.
But it was amazing how quickly I got embraced here. There was a few different hip hop events and a few different venues that were doing things regularly, like Diggy Towner. They had this Lauren Pasta bar every Monday night MC battle.
Dope.
And there's a few things that I just made sure I went out. I'm like, I'm gonna go to every possible thing I can so people will get familiar right away. Yeah. And literally, like, I was here a few months and already I was doing more active things than I had ever done in Chicago. I was getting invited to I made more money DJing probably my first year here than I made in my whole 10 years DJing in Chicago.
Damn.
Yeah,
Okay.
So it was like people just were really quick to embrace. And I think it was just because, I think part of it is Minneapolis is a very embracing scene for sure. I think
nice
that's
city.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it. But I also think another part of it is that people were familiar with me because of Scribble Jam.
Okay.
By then, Scribble Jam, was a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
And so people that recognize, oh, you're the Scribble Jam guy. So it kind of gave me a little bit of a edge.
Inside.
People just probably liked you too. You said you're a very people person, so the way you're able to connect with people, I'm sure is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So now, so when did you get the radio show?
Here?
Yeah.
How'd
that happen?
It was funny because how long was I here? I was here like 3 years. When I first came here, that was another thing. My radio show in Chicago was I love my radio show in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I was like, that was like the one thing I had to give up. I was like, oh man, this is my baby. I'd done it for 7 years. Yeah. But Sadiq kind of gave me threw me a bone or whatever. He's like, he had done a radio show here for a long time too.
RSC Radio.
RSC Radio. But it was to break it down when I first moved here. It became RSC Radio.
Okay.
And he had been done it for ways. Like, I've been doing the show for a long time. You come do the show with me, and at some point, he's like, I'm probably gonna not want to do it anymore. You can transition and be your show.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So it kind of made me feel okay about it. So I did that for a while with him. And then after a couple of years, I got an email from someone I knew here, and they're like, hey, there's this new station starting up,
Yeah.
and it's going to be like a sort of alternative rock station, and they do want to have a small hip hop show.
Okay.
And I mentioned your name, kind of know you had history in radio, and if you're interested, submit a demo. And I was like, cool, I'll try that out.
Yeah.
And she was like, she somehow, I don't know, came up, it's like, that was actually paid. I was like, paid for this?
I'm sorry, wait.
All this college community radio, it wasn't like a lot of money, but it was like, I can
Something.
actually, something.
You gotta carry your stuff.
And then, but the real thing, I was gonna do it regardless.
Yeah.
But then I was like, hey, what's the station gonna be? She goes, it's gonna be on 89.3.
Okay.
89.3 was the same station that
You
was
had-
in Chicago.
yeah, that's
I
what it
was
was.
89.3 to 8.
That's
I was
crazy.
like, it's destined.
It's meant to
gotta
be.
be.
Yeah.
So yeah, So that it's kind of happened like that.
Okay, so now as far as radio, because I have a radio show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so,
I love radio.
right? It's crazy. It's like freedom to where you can kind of, I don't know, it's like you put what you like out there.
Yeah.
And then people respond to that.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of crazy. So now, how do you feel the difference between Chicago radio and Minneapolis radio? Like, was there something different or?
I think the biggest difference is in some ways, this probably as much different as there's the same in some regards. I think most of it, at least how I view, here's the thing. I do the radio show. I always try to approach these things I do, doing what I feel, like for me, like not for me, but like I don't know how to explain it. It's like I think about what drives me, my passion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a radio show you're doing that you would like to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I do it for my passions, and knowing that my passions align with other people's passions as well. So so at the same time, I do realize other people will enjoy it. I don't know how many of those people are, but I know someone else probably thinks like me.
Yeah. Right.
So I do it like that, and so I guess my point is that I don't necessarily think about outside forces a lot. Like I never even asked the current where I'm at now. I never asked them like, what's our listenership?
Okay.
I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
When
I'm
I'm
not
out,
focused on the show
Yeah.
and getting it out there.
the other things can be a distraction.
Yeah.
Like if you're worrying about, if you have bad ratings with the show, but I'd rather not think about that.
Yeah.
If the show is not popular and then it gets bad ratings and we get let go, then that is. I don't want to think about it and change it because of that.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't even ask those kind of questions. So the only thing I see different is what I'm doing. The show in Chicago was a little more. It was super involved, in terms of it was an educational hip hop show. Where I was really detailed and every show it was like an information pack that was 20 pages long.
Damn. Nice.
Pretty much so it was like research, we would rather go through someone's whole career. Like today we're going to do the career of Cool G Rap, and I'm going to go through this and these things, and I interview him, add interview segments to it, talk about his history, all that stuff like that, influences, similar things. Or it'd be not even just artists. I'd be like a city. I did the history of hip hop in Toronto, history of hip hop in Philly or Boston, these different cities. I did that. So I was always trying to find different ways to use my show to communicate education about culture and artists and whatever. Yeah. And so that was a little more involved in what I'm doing now. Where now I'm just kind of getting back to my original plan was, let me try to give people something that I feel like not everyone is giving them. Yeah. In a mixture, because that was the kind of the thing I did. This is my second show on the current here.
Oh, okay.
I did another show.
H2 local or something like that?
Well, no, there was Redefinition Radio.
Okay.
When I originally started, that was that. And that was sort of like an extension of the time travel thing, but without all the musically, it was like kind of similar thing. Without me talking too much about it. It was only through the music. Yeah. Where on the other show, I was very
explaining
vocal. It was like 70% music and 30% talk. With other than that, this one's like 90% music, 10% talk. Okay. So I was a little more involved with that, doing like crazy stuff. Like for example, I did like a history of New York radio, how important New York radio was to influencing people outside of New York. Okay. And so I got with DJ Plano Bill and whatever, and we recreated like Red Alert and Chuck Chill Out radio shows. I went through my old tapes, gave them the tapes, had them play the same songs in the same order, but kind of doing a flair of how it is today. And then I went back and took that and got the original tapes and added parts of the original tapes from the broadcast into those mixes. Damn. So I was just doing like this kind of things to show people the history and how that even relates to what we're doing now.
Damn, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, it was like, but that's like just the passion that drives me to do it. So I was doing that, redefinition radio, and so now we're doing something a little more. I say it's a little more standard for what the current is. It's like a nice mix of, all eras of hip hop, all types, from the popular to the unknown. It's kind of a nice mixture of stuff. So I feel good that I've kind of done a little bit of everything I want to do on radio.
So you have a track record and be like, all right, because it's kind of like a thing where like I did it, now I can kind of like move on and do something else.
Yeah, which is good because you know what, it's easy to get stagnant. And
you start to hate it, kind of. Yeah, like it's work. I gotta go do this again.
Exactly, it becomes work, or sometimes people even get caught up in their own ideas and theories, and like there's a lot of in general, but specifically in hip hop, I find there's a lot of people who get overly protective of hip hop. It gets too like people are like so like caught up in their own beliefs that they think it reflects the whole culture. When it just reflects them. It's so like it's like easy to be like some people like people like, oh, I thought you didn't like that. I'm like, no, it's because I did a show where I played underground artists. Doesn't mean I don't like some people who aren't underground artists. It's that I was what I was doing at that time. I think there's a way to have all those things and still be true to the culture.
Because I think my whole thing is like there just needs to be a balance.
Sure. I mean, I agree.
It can't be one way or another. Just everybody should be able to do kind of what they want. Like about open source stuff. Oh, hip hop should be kind of open source. Well, everybody can do what they want.
But
then if you specify something dope, hold on.
I was watching him set up over there.
You'll be done in a second.
Oh, no, it's cool.
Don't pause it. Whatever you gotta do, I'm sorry.
All right, cool. So we talked about the radio.
Yeah.
Now, how did teaching come about?
Well, before moving here, just because, from my radio show, I guess, and also I've done some freelance writing since like the 90s.
Because you were doing like a doctorate every week on your show. All the work you were doing. So
that's something people started. That guy knows a lot. So like I would get called in to do a lecture at a college or speak at this event. So I would have done some speaking engagements, mostly at schools, anywhere from like elementary school to college. I've done in Chicago a few things, some speaking engagements, basically people just knowing that I had that kind of information, hip hop history. So when I got here, kind of the same thing. Local school, IPR, they had a popular music class, and the teacher had been teaching just like everything, and then he felt like his one weakest link was hip hop. He did it, but he's like that was just something he knew the least amount about.
Yeah, it was on the radio or something.
Right, and so he had a student at the time who was a fan of my radio show, and she just like suggested, hey, I know that because every class he'd be like, this is not really my strong point. We're going to talk a little bit about hip hop.
Yeah,
and she just like after class, she's like, hey, I know a guy who is a it is a strong point. You should bring him in to do a lecture. And so he took her advice, hit me up, and brought me in to do a lecture. And so I became a regular. Every quarter, I would go in and do that.
Okay.
And then eventually, they were like, "Hey, we keep hearing great things about your lecture in this class. We're interested in doing something, a little more involved because a lot of students coming to the school are into hip hop more and more.
Yeah, that is the popular thing
right.
now. Yeah,
and particularly also into Rhymesayers. So they're like, can we make this some sort of like Rhymesayers involved class? What's a Rhymesayers involved class? Where I'm the teacher, but I bring in the staff and the artists to be involved in the class.
That is dope.
So they learn about marketing from our marketing person. Sadiq comes and talks about entrepreneurship and how he started Rhymesayers. Bird talks about touring and doing all that stuff. Anna come in and make a beat live in the class. Next week we'll have Ali come in and lay a verse to it. Yeah, so like that last week they had A$AP Rock and they were doing vocals live for a song that never will come out just for them. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, we just do stuff like that.
So now that leads perfectly in talking about like the community involvement of Rhymesayers.
Yeah.
That's like that's like pretty much unheard of. Like just kind of speak on that. Like how important.
Super important. It's one of those things. One of those things that like we're involved in like our artists are involved a lot. I think Ali's involved, heavily involved in stuff, and as a label we're involved in stuff. Like from the teaching thing. We also through that school we started a scholarship to help people who can't afford to go, who have that kind of dream but can't afford it, to get them the scholarships to go to there for a free year of school. And just like whenever we see those kind of opportunities, we try to be involved. We know it's important. And like for me, I know that when I was coming up, I had people who were like mentors to me. Yeah. But there was a lot of things that if I had other kind of resources, it could have been very valuable to me. Yeah. At the same time, I did learn a lot just from like trial and error. I had no one, so I had to figure it out. Yeah. That's a great way. That is a great way to learn. No doubt, it is. But there's been a few things that I have done in my life that I wish I had just
some more resources.
A little more resources. Yeah. And so knowing that, it's like balance. People who that balance. People who are going to have that work ethic are going to have it regardless. So if they have that work ethic, give them some resources. Okay. And so we kind of think about like that, But it's one of those things too. We're also busy putting out records, throwing a festival. So you can, we always want to do more of those kind of things. Sometimes some of those things don't.
Only so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
So yeah. For sure. So now, speaking about the festival. So you were here for the very first sound set.
The first of the relaunch. No, it originally was a event they did in the 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, it's like they started doing it. It was the first like a kind of pattern after like a rave. It was like a. I don't know. It wasn't 24 hours. It was like a 16-hour show. It was like
and
crazy.
It was Rhymesayers then?
Yep, Rhymesayers did it. It was like Rhymesayers and all local groups and like some like the last group played like at 6 a.m. or something like that. Wow. Nice. It was like an all day, all night type of rave thing, and they did that. Like and then it became like a regular weekly Soundset Wednesdays at the First Avenue. They would do that. And actually, me and Bert came up for one of those. Yeah. One of our second trip here, our third trip here.
That was in the 90s.
Yeah, that was like in 98, 99. Me and Bert came. They did it. Started in 97.
Nice.
So it was one of those. Like, it was funny. So like that had happened before me and Bert were here. Yeah. And then when Bert came here, Bert had always kind of had the idea of wanting to do like a festival, and Sadiq had thought about it too. I had just been involved with Scribble Jam at that time, so I kind of didn't want to do a festival
because you knew the work.
Yeah, I was just like, no, we don't want to. Trust me, we don't want to do it. I'm being a little dramatic, but so for years it came up like, yeah, we should do a festival. Yeah, we should. No, we shouldn't. So it kept being put back. And then finally it was like, you know what? We're going to do it. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that, I feel like Bird and Sadiq were the main ones driving for that to happen. And it was funny. We were going through this whole thing. What are we going to name this thing? Yeah. No one could come up with. We had all these names that were bad. And we couldn't come up with a name. And so we ended up, Sadiq ended up making like a contest to staff. Like whoever gets the name, who names it, get this prize or whatever it was. And then Jordan, who works with us, he came with the infinite idea of like, we already got the perfect name. Yeah. And we're like, we do. You cheated kind of. but you win.
We thought outside the box. You win. Yeah. That's awesome.
So we brought it back. 2008 was the turn.
Now, the growth of it. I mean, how? Because Scribble Jam, amazing.
Yeah.
But
2,000 or 3,000 people.
Yeah. 30,000.
Yeah.
People from all over.
All hip hop. Like this, you think about every time I think about like any all hip hop festival that I've ever been to, like a couple thousand people is like a huge 4,000. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like Scribble Jam was considered massive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was like the mecca for a long time for people. Like,
because wow, hip hop can bring 3,000 people. Crazy, even sponsors were like, really? 3,000 hip hoppers? All right, we'll give you $20,000 for that, bro. So it's one of those things. So people, it's amazing.
Yeah.
How
do you get the word out about something like that, though? I mean, is it just you guys are on tour like, hey, we're doing this thing called Soundset?
I think this is a combination of all those things, man. Obviously, Rhymesayers is a label, and the artists we're working with. Just that was like a time where 2008. I can't remember exactly what was coming out, but by that time we had really diversified. We weren't just looked at as a local Minnesota label. By then we had done records for MF Doom. Yeah. Working with Freeway. We're working with. We had really diversified who we were working with, and so I think that's kind of opened up different doors for the label, and people being like, oh, this, people early on had certain stigmas of what Rhymesayers was.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's this one kind of thing. Oh yeah, if you know that, you know all Rhymesayers, which wasn't even true back then.
Yeah.
I don't think when we first started.
Micronauts, you had
Yeah.
all types of
Yeah, it was like different, but like it's because like maybe Atmosphere and Identity were like the most known. People thought, oh, it must all be like that. But we had Musab, we had like Blueprint, we had different things. So I think, but by that point, we had long, broken that stigma to most people. I mean, it still existed. It probably still exists to this day to some degree. But like, we had really broken a lot of it through that. A lot of people like understood we were this kind of like a more diverse label, a bigger thing. We're doing a lot more touring. All those things just played a part of it. And then like, how I always to phrase it is, before there was social media, Rhymesayers was already kind of doing that, in different ways. Like we were always about connecting with the fan base, and like how do we? That's why we were kind of like considered late in the game to get distribution, because when that time when everyone was getting a distribution deal, we didn't. And it wasn't like really like some great master plan necessarily. It's just that none of those deals sounded right, and we were doing fine on our own. But like when we're doing fine on our own, there's no need for us to go and do this.
Exactly, because then you have somebody else with their hand in there and trying to dictate how things go.
Right, and so we just didn't do that. And so I think just through all those things, we connected with our fan base because we had to
more.
Because
it was hand to hand, like literally.
It was hand to hand. So from the Rhymesayers message board to like them traveling, sleeping on people's couches early on, and just all those things were us just building up. And it wasn't like I said, it wasn't like it was like this master plan, like, oh, we better do this so in the future we can do these big things. It's just what seemed right. And I think that's what, and that's one of those things that's, I don't even know how you even. It can't really be duplicated in a certain sense, but you can because you can just be good people.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't suck. You can don't suck and just don't suck. Work hard, make good music. Yes, you can teach that. You can tell people that. You know, you can teach it. You can tell them that. But so I think it was all those things just kind of played into it, and then the timing was just right. And when we did that, and over the years we just slowly diversified what it was.
And speaking of, you guys have a iPhone speaker that attaches.
The case.
How did that what?
Case.
Well, it's one of those things. See, this is with a lot of labels and record stores too. When everyone went through the panic of like, CDs are dead, we're all gonna die, no one has a job, and everyone panicked and complained. I mean, I don't feel like you heard a whole lot of that come from Rhymesayers. Mainly because while a lot of our peers were focused on record sales, we were focused, on record sales too, but equally, if not more, focused on touring. Where like a lot of those groups weren't touring like us. A lot of our peer groups were not touring, and
nobody's really touring like you guys. I mean, that's just
it's just like because we were doing it back then.
It was like Rhymesayers and the Roots, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? And the Roots toured like 50 weeks out of the year,
right?
Much.
Yeah, and they were on a major label, so so I think it was that we were just kind of naturally do some things that put us in the right space to be able to succeed at those things.
That's dope. Okay. And then just the shop in general.
You
know what I'm saying? It's not, I think it's more than just selling records.
I
think that's why you guys were able to do it, because it's like a community center type thing.
That was kind of the thing, man. Like, once again, it came up just, it came up before I was here, but, as talking about it with Sadiq and what their plan was, it was just like kind of filling the void. Like they saw they were selling more tapes hand to hand at shows. There's demand for hip hop. People were looking when they would bring groups into town. They were bringing like Smith and West into town in the '90s, J Live, and all these underground groups, and people were like craving that music. They're like, well, there's a demand for that here, but there's not. Shops sold hip hop, of course, but like to create a place, they're like. Of their own, a base for it, there wasn't that really necessarily. And so it became that. And then, I remember when I came here for the first time, I was like really impressed. Like even like going to stores like in Chicago, everywhere. I traveled around, go to record stores. That's just what I did, buying too many records. I came here and I was like really impressed because I was like, man, I remember like, I feel like they had like everything. I was just like, man, how can you even afford to have all this stock in the store? There was like everything, and I never really been to a place where like it was just like everything you need hip hop is right here, right now.
Not,
you know, it's the new
not
stuff.
super underground and not like super, just everything.
Yeah, it was just like
If you're a hip hop head, you'll be happy.
Exactly. So they did a great job of that early on, and then like when I came into it, one of the things I wanted to do was kind of really open up the doors more to the community feel. So like they had already been doing like an open mic.
Yeah.
And
like
so
first Thursday. Well, now it's like the first Thursday.
So yeah, first Thursday, but it was like back then it was like the third Thursday, something like that. But like I started bringing we got that for the MCs, but let's have we started doing a thing called Last of the Record Buyers. It's also part of Soundset.
Yes,
that was a producer. That was a producer night.
Homie, I'm at Mad Beats. I think Zara's in.
Yeah, they've done it they've done it. So like we did that here in the store. That's how it started. It started at the venue actually. Then we moved to the store.
And homie X144 I think was a part of that too.
Yeah. So we started doing that. We started doing we did open mic. We did for a little while we did a DJ one, but that just didn't work out the same way for some reason.
Yeah.
Like the open tables.
It's difficult.
Yeah, it was difficult.
Yeah.
People this is one of those weird things. So and then but the fourth thing I did like to make it one every Thursday was we did this thing called Network and Parlay. And that was sort of like all you people come in open mic and LRB and the turntable thing. Here's the place we could come and get information how to further those things.
Okay.
So what I would do there was like I would invite let's say I'd invite Nate from First Avenue, and he'd be like, Nate, if you're a local artist, how do you get booked to First Avenue? I bring people from press, like, hey, if you're a local artist, how do you get press? So I created a forum here where people could come in and learn how to get press, how to get booked, how to do this, how to make a CD. What did it cost you? So we did seminars here for local artists.
Yeah,
to learn
that's
about.
dope.
So that was kind of like one of the things that I brought to the table was kind of expanding what we could do in terms of that.
That's fresh. All right. So expanding. What? 20 years. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, it's awesome.
What's in the works?
Man, I think it just sounds like it's not might sound backwards in a way, but one part of it is more of the same. Like I think we're doing things.
Formula,
we got a good formula. It's going good, and we're gonna keep on doing those things. But at the same time, we're always looking to push forward. Like you mentioned the Perry case. We're like I didn't even finish my full point. My point was that a lot of labels and stores were kind of panicking with the losing of record sales. We didn't really worry about that. We're like, well, we're not just we are a record label, but we are individuals who are more than just people who work on a record label.
Yeah.
Right.
We're creative individuals that goes beyond just what you do for a record label.
Yeah.
So how do we use those skills of being creative? I think one of the great assets of Rhymesayers is our ability to market things. That's why I think Soundset is successful. It's like we could probably, I'm gonna go a little over the top. We probably could compete with some great marketing firms out there. Marketing, I would believe that.
Yeah.
So I think that we're thinking about those kind of things. So that's why we can go and do like a Perry case, or work with this different technology and figure out how to bring music into it and not just be like mad because we can't sell CDs.
Embrace it.
Exactly right.
Make something
And then the
happen.
fact that it still aligns with Rhymesayers, like innovative, dope.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not about like abandoning what we're doing. It's about enhancing what we're doing, and it'll continue to grow
And strengthening the message.
Yeah.
Well, here's to another 200 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
At least.
And exactly right. 'Cause, I think when the world's about to explode or the sun's about to go out, they're gonna be playing some Rhymesayers. So, you know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that. I look forward to that.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you, man.
Anything that you need from us, let us know. You know what I'm saying? And,
appreciate it, man.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time. I know you got a million things to do right now. So
I need a break every once in a while, so it's good.
Good.
So-
I'm just taking in knowledge. It was good. A lot of what you said resonates, of course, with my situation because this is my life.
Yeah.
Hip hop. This is all I do now. So
Beautiful.
it's good. Good to hear that.
All right. Cool.
so I'm gonna get you the shirt.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be right back.